Have you ever felt like there's more to life than what you can see? Like there's something bigger going on that you can't quite put your finger on? Well, you're not alone. Today, we're diving into a topic that's both mysterious and exciting: spiritual awakening. It's a big change that can happen in your life, and it might be happening to you right now without you even knowing it. Let's start by breaking down what spiritual awakening really means. Think of it like waking up from a long, deep sleep. You know how when you're dreaming, everything seems real, but when you wake up, you realize it was all in your head? Spiritual awakening is kind of like that, but for your whole life. Imagine you've been wearing foggy glasses your whole life. You can see, but everything's a bit blurry. Then one day, someone hands you a clean pair of glasses. You put them on, and suddenly, everything is clear and bright. You can see details you never noticed before. The world looks the same, but your view of it has completely changed. That's what spiritual awakening feels like. When you go through a spiritual awakening, you start to see the world and yourself in a whole new way. It's like you've been living in a bubble, and suddenly that bubble pops. You realize there's so much more to life than you thought. You might start to question things you always believed were true. You might feel more connected to nature, to other people, or to something bigger than yourself. But here's the thing. Spiritual awakening isn't about joining a religion or believing in specific ideas. It's a personal journey that's different for everyone. For some people, it happens suddenly, like a light bulb turning on. For others, it's a slow process that happens over months or even years. The cool part is, you don't have to be a monk on a mountain or a guru in a cave to have a spiritual awakening. It can happen to anyone, anywhere, at any time. You could be doing your grocery shopping, walking your dog, or sitting in traffic when suddenly something clicks and you see the world in a whole new way. Now, you might be thinking, this sounds pretty out there. How do I know if I'm having a spiritual awakening? Well, that brings us to our next point. Just like how different people have different symptoms when they catch a cold, spiritual awakening can look different for everyone. But there are some common signs that many people experience. Let's talk about a few of them. First up, you might start feeling more connected to nature. Have you ever looked at a tree or a flower and felt a sudden sense of wonder, like you're seeing it for the first time? Even though you've seen thousands of trees and flowers before, that's a sign. You might find yourself wanting to spend more time outdoors, feeling a deep sense of peace when you're in nature, or even feeling sad when you see nature being harmed. Another sign is being more aware of your thoughts and feelings. It's like you've got a little observer in your head, watching your thoughts go by. You might start to notice patterns in how you think or react to things. Maybe you realize you always get angry in traffic, or you always feel nervous around certain people. This awareness can be a bit uncomfortable at first, but it's actually a good thing. It means you're starting to see yourself more clearly. You might also find yourself wanting to help others more. It's like your heart grows bigger, and you start to feel more compassion for people around you. You might feel upset when you see someone suffering, even if you don't know them. You might start volunteering, donating to charities, or just being kinder to people in your daily life. Here's another common sign. You start questioning things you've always believed. Maybe you were raised to think a certain way about life, religion, or how the world works. Suddenly, you find yourself wondering if those things are really true. This doesn't mean you have to change all your beliefs, but you start to think about them more deeply. You might also start feeling like your old life doesn't fit you anymore. Things that used to be important to you might not seem so important now. You might lose interest in watching TV or scrolling through social media. Instead, you might want to spend more time reading, meditating, or having deep conversations with friends. Some people start having strange experiences when they're awakening. You might feel energy moving through your body, or you might have vivid dreams or see flashes of light. These experiences can be a bit scary, but they're usually nothing to worry about. They're just signs that your awareness is expanding. Another sign is feeling a strong urge to find your purpose in life. You might start asking big questions like, why am I here? Or what am I supposed to be doing with my life? These questions can be uncomfortable, but they're a sign that you're growing and evolving. You might also become more sensitive to the world around you. Loud noises might bother you more than they used to. You might find it hard to be in crowded places, or you might feel overwhelmed by the news or by other people's emotions. This sensitivity happens because you're becoming more aware of the energies around you. Some people experience physical changes during a spiritual awakening. You might have changes in your sleep patterns, like waking up at 3 a.m. every night. You might have more energy, or you might feel tired a lot. Some people even experience changes in their diet, suddenly craving healthier foods or losing interest in meat. Lastly, you might feel a deep sense that everything is connected. You start to see how your actions affect others and how everything in the world is linked. This can be a beautiful feeling, but it can also make you feel more responsible for your choices and actions. Now, if you're reading this and thinking, wow, I felt some of these things, don't worry. You're not going crazy and you're not alone. Many people go through spiritual awakenings, even if they don't call it that. It's a natural part of growing and evolving as a person. But here's an important thing to remember. You don't need to experience all of these signs to be going through a spiritual awakening. You might only feel one or two of them, or you might experience something totally different that's not on this list. That's okay. Everyone's journey is unique. Also, these signs can come and go. You might feel super connected to nature one day and then not feel it at all the next day. That's normal too. Spiritual awakening isn't usually a smooth, straight line. It's more like a winding path with ups and downs. If you are experiencing some of these signs, it can be both exciting and a little scary. You might feel like you're changing, but the world around you is staying the same. You might feel lonely, like no one understands what you're going through. But remember, many people have walked this path before you. There are books, videos, and communities out there that can support you on your journey. It's also important to take care of yourself during this time. Make sure you're getting enough sleep, eating well, and taking time to relax. Spiritual awakening can be intense, so it's important to be gentle with yourself. Now, you might be wondering, why is this happening to me? Why now? Well, that's a great question, and it brings us to our next point. Spiritual awakening doesn't just happen out of the blue. Usually, there's something that triggers it. One of the most common triggers is a big life change. Let's talk about how these changes can spark a spiritual awakening. Think about a time when something big happened in your life. Maybe you moved to a new city, started a new job, or ended a long relationship. These kinds of big changes can shake up our whole world. They force us to look at life in a new way. For example, let's say you lose your job. At first, it might feel terrible. You're worried about money, and you might feel like you failed. But then, as time goes on, you start to see it differently. Maybe you realize that you didn't really like that job anyway. You start to think about what you really want to do with your life. You start questioning the whole idea of work and what it means to be successful. Without realizing it, you're starting to wake up spiritually. Or maybe you move to a new place. Everything is different. The people, the culture, the food. At first, it's overwhelming. But then you start to see how people in this new place think differently about life. You start to question your own beliefs and habits. You realize that the way you've always done things isn't the only way. This new perspective can be the start of a spiritual awakening. Big health challenges can also trigger spiritual awakenings. When we're faced with a serious illness or injury, we're forced to slow down. We start to think about what's really important in life. We might face our fears about death. All of this deep thinking and feeling can lead to a spiritual awakening. Sometimes, it's happy events that trigger awakenings. Having a baby, for example, can completely change your view of the world. Suddenly, you're responsible for this tiny human. You might start to think about the meaning of life in a whole new way. You might feel a stronger connection to all living things. Traveling can also spark a spiritual awakening. When we visit new places and meet people from different cultures, we see that there are many ways to live and many ways to see the world. This can shake up our beliefs and open us up to new ideas. Even smaller changes can trigger awakenings if they make us see life differently. Maybe you read a book that changes your whole perspective, or you have a conversation with someone that makes you question everything you thought you knew. These moments can be the first step on a spiritual journey. Sometimes, it's not one big event. but a series of small things that lead to an awakening. Maybe you've been feeling unsatisfied with your life for a while. Nothing seems to make you happy anymore. Then one day, you see a beautiful sunset, and suddenly you feel a deep sense of peace. This moment of beauty and peace might be the start of your awakening. It's important to remember that these life changes don't automatically lead to spiritual awakening. It's more about how we respond to them. Some people might go through big changes and not experience any spiritual growth. Others might have a small experience that completely changes their view of life. The key is being open to change. When something big happens in our life, we have a choice. We can try to hold on to our old ways of thinking and resist the change, or we can open ourselves up to new possibilities. It's this openness that allows spiritual awakening to happen. Sometimes, the change that triggers an awakening isn't something that happens to us, but something we choose to do. Maybe you decide to start meditating or practicing yoga. At first, you're just doing it for stress relief or exercise. But as you keep practicing, you start to experience shifts in your consciousness. You start to see yourself and the world differently. Or maybe you decide to spend some time alone in nature. You go camping or take a solo hike. Being away from the noise and distractions of everyday life allows you to connect with something deeper. You might have insights or experiences that start you on a spiritual path. It's also worth noting that sometimes spiritual awakening happens during times of crisis. When everything in our life seems to be falling apart, we're forced to let go of our old ways of thinking. This can be painful, but it can also open us up to new growth and understanding. For example, going through a divorce might feel like the end of the world, but it can also be an opportunity to rediscover who you are as an individual. You might start to question your beliefs about relationships and love. This questioning can lead to deeper spiritual insights. Or maybe you experience a financial crisis. Losing all your money can be terrifying, but it can also make you question what's really important in life. You might realize that happiness doesn't come from material things. This realization can be the start of a spiritual journey. Even global events can trigger awakenings. Things like natural disasters, pandemics, or social movements can shake up our view of the world. They make us realize how connected we all are. They might make us think about our place in the bigger picture of life. It's important to remember that spiritual awakening isn't always triggered by dramatic or difficult events. Sometimes, it can happen during ordinary moments. You might be doing the dishes or walking your dog when suddenly, you have a profound realization about life. These everyday awakenings can be just as powerful as those triggered by big life changes. The bottom line is, life changes open us up to new possibilities. They shake us out of our routines and make us see things differently. Whether it's a big event or a small moment, these changes can be the spark that starts our spiritual journey. But here's the thing. Even if you haven't experienced any big life changes, you can still have a spiritual awakening. Sometimes, awakening happens simply because we're ready for it. It's like we've been slowly growing and changing over time, and then one day, we reach a tipping point. Suddenly, we see everything differently. So if you're feeling like you're going through some kind of spiritual change, take a moment to think about what's been happening in your life. Have you experienced any big changes recently? Or have you been feeling unsatisfied or restless, like you're ready for something new? These could be signs that you're ripe for a spiritual awakening. Remember, spiritual awakening isn't something that happens to you passively. It's a process that you participate in. So if you feel like you're ready for a change, don't be afraid to seek it out. Read books on spirituality, try meditation, spend time in nature. Open yourself up to new experiences and new ways of thinking. And if you are going through big changes in your life, try to see them as opportunities for growth. Even if they're difficult or painful, these changes could be the beginning of an amazing spiritual journey. Stay open, stay curious, and see where the journey takes you. Here's the continuation of the script, covering the next 3 sections from the outline. Now, let's talk about another big reason why spiritual awakenings happen: inner growth. This is all about how we change and develop as people over time. You see, we're not meant to stay the same our whole lives. Just like our bodies grow and change, our minds and spirits do too. Think about how different you are now compared to when you were a kid. You've learned so much, had so many experiences, and probably changed your mind about a lot of things. Well, this process of growing and changing doesn't stop when we become adults. We keep learning, keep experiencing, and keep evolving. Sometimes, this inner growth happens slowly, bit by bit. We read books that give us new ideas. We meet people who challenge our beliefs. We try new things that expand our horizons. All of these experiences add up over time. They shape how we see ourselves and the world around us. But here's the thing. Sometimes, all this gradual growth reaches a tipping point. It's like we've been slowly filling up a cup and suddenly it overflows. That overflow moment? That's often when a spiritual awakening happens. For example, maybe you've been learning about different cultures and religions for years. You've been interested, but it hasn't really changed your life. Then one day, you read something or have a conversation that makes everything click. Suddenly, all that knowledge comes together in a new way. You see connections you never saw before. You understand things on a deeper level. This moment of understanding can be the start of a spiritual awakening. Or maybe you've been working on yourself for a while. You've been going to therapy or doing self-help exercises or just trying to be a better person. You've been making progress, but it's been slow. Then one day, you have a breakthrough. You finally understand something about yourself that you've been struggling with for years. This moment of self-understanding can open the door to spiritual growth. Sometimes, inner growth comes from facing our fears or overcoming challenges. Maybe you've always been afraid of public speaking. You decide to face this fear and sign up for a speech class. As you work through your fear, you start to realize how much of your life has been limited by fear. This realization might lead you to question other aspects of your life, sparking a spiritual awakening. Inner growth can also come from developing new skills or talents. Maybe you start learning to paint or play music. As you develop your creativity, you might start to see the world in a more beautiful and meaningful way. This new perspective can be the beginning of a spiritual journey. It's important to remember that inner growth isn't always comfortable. Sometimes, we have to face hard truths about ourselves or let go of beliefs that no longer serve us. This can be painful, but it's often necessary for spiritual growth. For example, maybe you realize that you have a habit of judging others harshly. As you work on being more compassionate, you have to confront your own insecurities and fears. This process can be challenging, but it can lead to a deeper understanding of yourself and others. Or maybe you've always believed that success means making a lot of money, but as you grow and change, you start to question this belief. You might go through a period of confusion as you try to figure out what really matters to you. This questioning can be unsettling, but it's often a sign that you're growing spiritually. The beauty of inner growth is that it's something we can actively pursue. We don't have to wait for life to push us into change. We can choose to learn, to challenge ourselves, to explore new ideas. Every time we do this, we're creating the conditions for spiritual awakening. So if you're feeling stuck or stagnant in your life, try something new. Take a class, read a book on a topic you know nothing about, have a deep conversation with someone who thinks differently than you. These experiences might just be the spark that ignites your spiritual awakening. Now, let's dive into another big reason why spiritual awakenings happen. The search for answers to life's big questions. You know those questions that pop into your head sometimes, like, what's the meaning of life? Or, why am I here? Well, when we start really digging into these questions, it can lead us down a path of spiritual awakening. We humans are curious creatures. We're always trying to figure things out, to understand the world around us and our place in it. Most of the time, we're busy with our day-to-day lives and don't think too much about these big questions. But sometimes, something happens that makes us stop and wonder. Maybe you're lying in bed one night, looking up at the stars, and suddenly you're hit with a sense of how vast the universe is. You start to wonder about your place in all of this. What does your life mean in the grand scheme of things? These kinds of thoughts can be the beginning of a spiritual journey. Or maybe you're going through a tough time in your life. You're dealing with loss or disappointment, and you start to wonder why bad things happen. You might ask yourself, is there a purpose to all this suffering? This search for meaning in difficult times can often lead to spiritual insights. Sometimes, the search for answers comes from a feeling that something is missing in our lives. Maybe you've achieved all the things you thought would make you happy: a good job, a nice house, a loving family, but you still feel like there's something more out there. This feeling of incompleteness can push us to look for deeper meaning in life. The cool thing about seeking answers is that it opens us up to new ideas and experiences. When we're truly curious, we're more willing to explore different perspectives. We might start reading books on philosophy or spirituality. We might talk to people from different backgrounds or try out different spiritual practices. For example, let's say you start wondering about what happens after we die. This question might lead you to read about different religions and their beliefs about the afterlife. As you learn, you might find yourself thinking differently about life and death. You might start to see your life in a new light. This shift in perspective can be a form of spiritual awakening. Or maybe you're curious about the nature of consciousness. You might start learning about meditation or mindfulness. As you practice these techniques, you might have experiences that change how you see yourself and the world. You might realize that there's more to reality than what we can see and touch. Sometimes, seeking answers leads us to question the beliefs we've always held. Maybe you were raised with certain religious or cultural beliefs, but now you're starting to wonder if they're really true. This questioning can be uncomfortable, but it's often a necessary part of spiritual growth. For instance, you might have always believed that happiness comes from achieving success and acquiring things. But as you question this belief, you might discover that true happiness comes from within. This realization can be the start of a profound spiritual transformation. It's important to remember that seeking answers doesn't mean we'll find all the answers. In fact, spiritual awakening often involves becoming comfortable with mystery and uncertainty. We might realize that some questions don't have simple answers, and that's okay. The process of seeking itself can be transformative. As we ask big questions and explore different ideas, we expand our minds and open our hearts. We become more aware of the complexity and wonder of life. This increased awareness is a key part of spiritual awakening. Sometimes, the search for answers leads us to unexpected places. You might start out wondering about the meaning of life and end up discovering a passion for environmental conservation. Or you might begin questioning your purpose and find yourself drawn to helping others. These new directions can be signs of spiritual growth. It's also worth noting that seeking answers often involves looking inward as well as outward. As we explore big questions about life and the universe, we're also exploring ourselves. We might ask, who am I really? Or what do I truly want in life? These self-reflective questions can lead to profound self-discovery and spiritual growth. So if you find yourself grappling with life's big questions, don't shy away from them. Embrace your curiosity. Let yourself wonder and explore. Talk to others about these questions. Read, learn, and experience new things. Remember, every great spiritual journey starts with a question. Now, let's talk about something that plays a huge role in spiritual awakening: mindfulness. You might have heard this word before. It's become pretty popular in recent years. But what does it really mean, and how does it relate to spiritual awakening? At its core, mindfulness is about being fully present in the moment. It's about paying attention to what's happening right now, both around you and inside you. This might sound simple, but it's actually pretty rare in our busy, distracted world. Think about it. How often are you really focused on what you're doing right now? Most of the time, our minds are somewhere else. We're thinking about what we need to do later, or worrying about something that happened yesterday, or daydreaming about the future. Mindfulness is about bringing our attention back to the present moment. So, how does this relate to spiritual awakening? Well, mindfulness is like a workout for your awareness. The more you practice being present and aware, the more you start to notice things you never noticed before. You become more aware of your thoughts, your feelings, and the world around you. For example, let's say you decide to practice mindfulness while eating. Instead of scarfing down your food while watching TV, you really pay attention to each bite. You notice the flavors, the textures, the smells. You might start to feel more grateful for your food. You might become more aware of how different foods affect your body. This increased awareness, even in something as simple as eating, can be the start of a spiritual awakening. Mindfulness can also help us become more aware of our thoughts and feelings. Most of the time, we're so caught up in our thoughts that we don't even realize we're thinking. It's like we're on autopilot. But when we practice mindfulness, we start to notice our thoughts. We can see them come and go without getting caught up in them. This awareness of our thoughts can be a big part of spiritual awakening. We might start to realize that we're not our thoughts. We're the awareness that notices the thoughts. This realization can be pretty mind-blowing. It can change how we see ourselves and how we relate to our experiences. Mindfulness can also help us connect with our bodies. In our busy lives, we often ignore what our bodies are telling us. We push through tiredness, ignore hunger, or bottle up stress. But when we practice mindfulness, we start to tune into our bodies. We might notice tension we've been carrying around for years. We might become more aware of how certain situations affect us physically. This body awareness can be a powerful tool for spiritual growth. Our bodies often know things before our minds do. By tuning into our bodies, we can gain insights and understanding that our thinking minds might miss. Another way mindfulness contributes to spiritual awakening is by helping us be more present in our relationships. When we're really present with someone, really listening and paying attention, we can connect on a deeper level. We might start to feel a sense of oneness or connection that goes beyond words. Mindfulness can also help us appreciate the beauty in everyday moments. When we're rushing through life, we miss so much. But when we slow down and pay attention, we might notice the way light plays on leaves, or the sound of birds singing, or the feeling of a cool breeze on our skin. These moments of beauty and connection can spark feelings of awe and wonder, which are often part of spiritual awakening. Now, you might be thinking, this sounds great, but how do I actually practice mindfulness? Well, there are lots of ways, but here's a simple exercise you can try right now. Take a deep breath. As you breathe in, notice the feeling of the air entering your nose or mouth. Feel your chest or belly expand. As you breathe out, pay attention to the sensation of the air leaving your body. Try to focus all your attention on your breath. If your mind wanders, and it will, that's okay. Just gently bring your attention back to your breath. Try doing this for a few minutes each day. You might be surprised at how much it can change your awareness over time. Remember, mindfulness isn't about clearing your mind or achieving some special state. It's simply about being aware of what's happening right now, without judgment. It's a skill that gets stronger with practice. As you become more mindful, you might start to notice changes in how you see the world. You might feel more connected to others and to nature. You might start to question things you've always taken for granted. You might have moments of insight or understanding that seem to come out of nowhere. These are all signs that mindfulness is opening you up to new ways of seeing and being. And that's really what spiritual awakening is all about, seeing the world and yourself in a new way. So if you're interested in spiritual growth, try incorporating some mindfulness into your daily life. It doesn't have to be complicated. You can practice mindfulness while eating, walking, or even doing the dishes. The key is to bring your full attention to whatever you're doing. Remember, spiritual awakening isn't about reaching some perfect state. It's a journey of growing awareness and understanding. And mindfulness is a powerful tool for that journey. It helps us wake up to the richness and wonder of life that's always there, just waiting for us to notice it. Certainly. Here's the continuation of the script, covering the remaining sections from the outline, followed by a conclusion. Now, let's talk about something that doesn't get discussed as much: the challenges of spiritual awakening. You see, while spiritual awakening can be amazing and life-changing, it's not always easy. In fact, sometimes it can be downright difficult. One of the biggest challenges is that spiritual awakening can make you feel different from everyone around you. You might start to see the world in a new way, but your friends and family might not understand. They might think you're acting weird or that you've joined some kind of cult. This can be really lonely and isolating. For example, let's say you've had a profound realization about the interconnectedness of all things. You feel a deep sense of love and compassion for everyone and everything. But when you try to share this with your friends, they just look at you like you've lost your mind. This can be really frustrating and can make you feel very alone. Another challenge is that spiritual awakening often involves questioning everything you thought you knew. This can be really unsettling. You might start to doubt your beliefs, your values, even your sense of who you are. It's like the rug has been pulled out from under you, and you're not sure what's real anymore. This questioning can be especially hard if you come from a religious background. You might feel guilty for questioning your faith, or scared of disappointing your family. You might worry that you're doing something wrong, or that you're going to be punished for your doubts. Spiritual awakening can also bring up a lot of difficult emotions. As you become more aware, you might start to notice pain or trauma that you've been carrying around for years. This can be really overwhelming. You might feel like you're falling apart or going crazy. For instance, you might suddenly remember a painful childhood experience that you'd forgotten about. Or you might become acutely aware of all the suffering in the world, which can lead to feelings of sadness or despair. These intense emotions can be hard to handle, especially if you don't have support. Another challenge is that spiritual awakening can disrupt your life in practical ways. You might lose interest in your job or your hobbies. You might feel like you need to make big changes in your life, but not know how to do that. This can lead to a sense of being stuck between two worlds, your old life that no longer fits and a new life that you're not sure how to create. For example, you might realize that your corporate job doesn't align with your new values, but you're not sure how to make a living doing something more meaningful. Or you might feel called to spend more time in nature or meditation, but struggle to fit that into your busy life. It's also worth mentioning that spiritual awakening can sometimes come with strange experiences that can be scary if you don't understand what's happening. You might have vivid dreams or visions. You might feel energy moving through your body in ways you can't explain. You might even have what feels like psychic experiences. These experiences can be exciting, but they can also be frightening if you don't know what to make of them. Another challenge is that spiritual awakening often happens in cycles. You might have periods of amazing insight and growth, followed by periods where you feel stuck or like you're going backwards. This can be really frustrating. You might wonder if you're doing something wrong or if you've lost your way. It's important to remember that these challenges are a normal part of the process. Just like a butterfly has to struggle to get out of its cocoon, we often have to go through difficult times to grow and transform. The challenges of spiritual awakening are not a sign that something is wrong. They're often a sign that you're growing and changing in powerful ways. So if you're going through these challenges, be gentle with yourself. Remember that it's okay to take things slow. You don't have to figure everything out all at once. It's okay to have doubts and questions. It's okay to feel overwhelmed sometimes. These are all part of the journey. Now, let's talk about the good stuff, the benefits of spiritual awakening. While the journey can be challenging, it can also bring incredible positive changes to your life. One of the biggest benefits is a deeper sense of peace and contentment. When you're spiritually awake, you're less caught up in the drama of everyday life. You're able to step back and see the bigger picture. This doesn't mean you never get upset or stressed, but you're able to come back to a place of calm more easily. For example, you might find that things that used to really bother you just don't seem as important anymore. Maybe you used to get really stressed about small things at work, but now you're able to take them in stride. You realize that in the grand scheme of things, these little annoyances don't really matter. Another benefit is a greater sense of connection to yourself, to others, and to the world around you. You might feel more in tune with your own thoughts and feelings. You might find it easier to empathize with others, even people who are very different from you. You might feel a deep sense of awe and wonder when you're in nature. This increased connection can lead to more fulfilling relationships. You might find that you're able to communicate more openly and honestly with people. You might develop deeper, more meaningful friendships. You might even find that your relationships with family members improve as you become more understanding and compassionate. Spiritual awakening often brings a greater sense of purpose and meaning to life. You start to see beyond the surface level of things. You might discover a sense of mission or calling that gives your life direction. This can be incredibly fulfilling and energizing. For instance, you might realize that you have a passion for helping others or for creating art that uplifts people. or you might feel called to work towards healing the environment. Whatever it is, this sense of purpose can give your life a whole new level of richness and satisfaction. Another benefit is increased self-awareness and self-acceptance. As you become more aware of your thoughts, feelings, and patterns, you're able to understand yourself better. This understanding often leads to greater self-acceptance. You learn to embrace all parts of yourself, even the parts you used to think were flaws. This self-acceptance can be incredibly freeing. You might find that you're less worried about what others think of you. You might feel more confident in expressing your true self. You might even find it easier to set healthy boundaries in your relationships. Spiritual awakening often brings a shift in values. Things that used to seem important, like having the latest gadget or impressing others, might not matter as much anymore. Instead, you might find yourself valuing things like kindness, authenticity, and personal growth. This shift in values can lead to positive changes in your lifestyle. You might find yourself making healthier choices, not because you feel you should, but because it feels right. You might spend less time on social media and more time in nature or with loved ones. You might become more interested in practices like meditation or yoga. Another benefit is increased resilience. When you're spiritually awake, you're better able to handle life's ups and downs. You understand that challenges are part of the journey, not roadblocks. You're able to find meaning even in difficult situations. For example, if you lose your job, instead of seeing it as a disaster, you might see it as an opportunity for growth or a chance to pursue a path that's more aligned with your true self. This resilience can help you navigate life's challenges with more grace and less stress. Spiritual awakening can also bring a sense of freedom. As you let go of limiting beliefs and patterns, you might feel like you have more choices in life. You might feel more able to create the life you want, rather than just following the path that's expected of you. This freedom can show up in all areas of your life. You might feel more creative in your work. You might be more spontaneous in your relationships. You might feel more comfortable trying new things or taking risks. Lastly, spiritual awakening often brings a deep sense of gratitude and appreciation for life. You start to see the beauty in everyday moments. You appreciate the simple things, a kind word from a stranger, the warmth of the sun on your face, the taste of good food. This gratitude can have a profound effect on your happiness and well-being. Research has shown that practicing gratitude can improve mental health, increase happiness, and even boost physical health. So this benefit of spiritual awakening can have far-reaching effects on your overall quality of life. As we come to the end of our exploration of spiritual awakening, let's take a moment to reflect on what we've learned. We've talked about what spiritual awakening is, why it happens, and some of the signs that you might be going through one. We've explored how life changes, inner growth, and seeking answers can trigger awakenings. We've discussed the important role of mindfulness in the process. And we've looked at both the challenges and the benefits of spiritual awakening. Remember, spiritual awakening is a deeply personal journey. Your experience might be different from anyone else's, and that's okay. There's no right or wrong way to awaken spiritually. It's not a race or a competition. It's a process of growth and discovery that unfolds in its own time and in its own way. If you think you might be going through a spiritual awakening, be patient with yourself. Embrace the journey with all its ups and downs. Don't be afraid to seek support if you need it. There are many books, videos, and communities out there that can offer guidance and understanding. And if you're not experiencing a spiritual awakening right now, that's okay too. Not everyone goes through this process, and there's no need to force it. But if you're curious, you can always open yourself up to new experiences and perspectives. Practice mindfulness, ask big questions, and stay open to the wonder and mystery of life. Remember, at its core, spiritual awakening is about seeing the world and yourself in a new way. It's about waking up to the deeper truths of existence and your place in it. Whether that happens in a sudden burst of insight or as a gradual unfolding over time, it has the power to transform your life in profound and beautiful ways. So keep your heart open, your mind curious, and your spirit ready for adventure. You never know when or how your own awakening might begin. And when it does, embrace it with all its challenges and joys. Because in the end, the journey of spiritual awakening is one of the most rewarding adventures we can embark on in this lifetime. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of spiritual awakening. I hope you found it enlightening and inspiring. Remember, the journey doesn't end here. It continues with every breath, every moment, every new day. So keep exploring, keep growing, and keep awakening to the wonder and beauty of life.